Hello, my name's Kristen. Welcome back to the playlist about alcohol and alcohol problems. I wanted to respond to a comment, a question I received asking if I had a history of addiction myself, since obviously it's important in terms of can I relate to the struggles, perhaps. I do not have a history of having a challenge with alcohol. I do have a history of having a challenge around my relationship to food. Um, so, in that way, there's some experience of difficulty with controlling behavior. Perhaps in the past, there was a huge challenge with the feeling that I needed something outside of myself to change how I was feeling because I couldn't tolerate how I was feeling. This started relatively early in my life. I think it really got going around the time I was 9 or 10 years old. I would get home from school and I would be feeling anxious. I was in the house alone. And so I guess I discovered that if I consumed certain foods, I would have a response of feeling more relaxed, sedated. Perhaps there would be a sense of safety, soothing. I think that people who, they've gotten into alcohol use or abuse, perhaps they got into drugs like heroin. There is a description you hear a lot that there's a warming, almost hug like feeling that those substances could bring to the person's body. And I think refined carbohydrates also have that effect. Maybe you've heard about how sugar has been compared to, it acts on the same brain centers as cocaine and things like that. I don't know about all of that. I haven't looked into it too much, but I can say from my own experience of repeatedly over many years on and off overindulging in highly refined carbohydrates, sugar and flour products and things like that. Overeating. I'd say I probably meet criteria for a binge eating disorder, at least in parts of my life, maybe not presently, in my behavior presently, but in and out of that over the course of my life, including a lot of my adult life. So, overeating. I can say that definitely consuming carbohydrates has a very pleasant effect on the body, and it changes my state, how I feel. Um, and yeah, I'd say so it's an addiction in the sense of I was using that technique for changing my state instead of, until later in my life, instead of looking at what is it that I am trying to avoid feeling? What is this about? What do I believe about myself? Why is it that I believe that I must overconsume food in this moment? And it almost feels like a compulsion, like I have to, right? So I think there's a lot of similarities to perhaps an experience of feeling that way in relationship to alcohol. Uh, and share if that's relatable, just like what I said. Uh, but there's so much about my my challenge in life that is not similar to alcohol problems. Obviously, you can develop various diseases. You can give yourself diabetes if you eat in a certain way in abundance and with great regularity. And, you can cause health problems. You can cause obesity. Sure. But alcohol is unique in that it creates a whole host of other types of problems along with it. Like, if you overconsume, then now you're driving a vehicle impaired. So now you're a danger to yourself and others on the road. Not usually the case if I were to go to Burger King and order way too much food and eat it all. I think the health risks for alcohol are obviously much greater and higher, and I believe that the physical dependence that develops is obviously a whole different category of addiction than anything I ever went through. At its source, I think it's the same. It's just that in my life, I found that as a good enough solution. If I'd been in a different household, or if circumstances had been maybe a little bit different, it could have very well been the case that I would have turned to alcohol and then developed a relationship with it as the solution to my emotional struggles. But I think at the source of the issue, I was contending with similar things, similar challenges as anyone who happened to select alcohol as the solution to their problems. Rooted in, again, how do we feel about ourselves? Are we feeling profoundly uncomfortable in our own skin? Profoundly uncomfortable as if somehow we're not enough. We're not meeting some sort of standard for ourselves in life. Perhaps we feel rejected, abandoned, unworthy, invisible, helpless, powerless, whatever these feelings are that we started to feel earlier in life. That is the source of that initial, let me find something that changes how I feel inside. And the true healing, whether it be from an eating disorder or an alcohol problem, has to do with really finding out what's the truth about what I believe about myself. How do I feel about myself? What do I believe about life? These things, these answers that you find when you start looking, maybe you start doing some writing and writing down, like, really honestly, even if it's painful, those are the things that have to change in order for the actual healing to happen. Because when you get to the point where you're able to forgive yourself for all of your mistakes, because you are able to accept the fact that you were doing the best you could with what understanding and information you had up to that point in life, and that you really didn't have better options in your mind at the time, when you can forgive yourself those things, when you can really then detach from past errors and past beliefs about some lack in you, then you can start to find out who you actually could have been. Who would I have been had I not believed those things? What would I have gone after in life had I had more self-confidence, or just that feeling of, like, feeling okay enough with myself to take risks or to try something? Who would I have become had those things not happened to me and caused me to believe those things about myself? See, this is where the healing takes place. So there's a great similarity to any problem, in fact, like, going from an eating disorder, comparing it to alcohol use disorder, comparing it to heroin addiction, cocaine addiction, marijuana addiction, whatever it may be, or shopping addiction, gambling, you name it. They're all similar in that they're coming from some belief that we need something outside of ourselves to change how we feel on the inside. So that's the same. And so the solution to any of it, the ultimate solution, where you don't need things outside yourself anymore, would be to heal those erroneous beliefs about life and about yourself. But other than that, I mean, then they all these problems, they have very wildly different manifestations, and but they're all forgivable, and you can you really can get free of them, but you just have to be brave enough to do the inner work and to be brave enough to actually start to receive positive feeling for yourself. So, receive from yourself positive feeling about yourself. See, it might take some courage to do that because many of us may have grown up in a household where we weren't even really allowed to be happy with ourselves. That would have been a sin, or that would have been deemed improper somehow. And you may be living as an adult loyal to a law that makes no sense, but you might not even be aware of it. So have the courage to look within. Let me know what you think. Um, I do want to continue to respond to comments. I'm enjoying that. It's giving me things to expound upon. So thank you for watching. I hope it was helpful.